Have you ever been judged just by the way you look? What happens when a simple family outing turns into a life-altering event? And what if it's all because of the color of your skin? Marcus Bennett didn't expect anything unusual when he woke up that morning. It was a day like any other, or so he thought. But little did he know, by the end of the day, his world would be turned upside down. And it all started with a simple trip to the park with his son. What happens when a father simply wants to play with his child, but society decides he's a threat? And how far will injustice go before it's exposed? Keep watching as we uncover a story that will leave you questioning everything. Marcus Bennett, a 36-year-old construction worker, had the day off. He was looking forward to spending it with his son, Elijah. It was rare for him to get a break from work, and he knew that every moment he spent with Elijah was precious. Elijah, his youngest child, had been asking to go to the park for weeks, and today, Marcus decided to make it happen. As they arrived at the park, the sun was shining, and everything seemed perfect. Elijah ran ahead, his laughter ringing out as he dashed toward the swings. Marcus followed, smiling at his son's excitement. But then, something felt off. The air was heavy, and a sense of unease washed over Marcus. He couldn't quite explain it, but he knew something wasn't right. It wasn't long before a black and white police car slowly rolled up beside them. Marcus didn't think much of it at first. Police officers patrolled this area regularly. But then, something happened that made his stomach drop. The car stopped. Two officers stepped out, Officer Davis and his partner. The moment they got out of the car, Marcus's heart began to race. Why were they stopping? What did they want? But Marcus pushed it aside, focusing on his son, who was still happily swinging, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Davis approached Marcus, his eyes narrowing. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice cold. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't a casual question. It felt accusatory, like Marcus had already done something wrong. The question wasn't about what he was doing. It was about who he was. Why was this man, this black man, playing with his child at the park? "I'm playing with my son," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice calm. But inside, his mind was racing. Was this really happening? Why was his presence questioned in a public space, a place meant for families to relax and enjoy their time together? Davis didn't respond immediately. Instead, he just stared at Marcus, his gaze cold and unyielding. "Are you sure about that?" he asked, his voice sharp. Marcus's mind spun. What was happening? Why was he being interrogated like this? Couldn't a father just play with his child without being suspected of something? Before Marcus could process the situation, Davis asked for his ID. His hands trembling slightly, Marcus pulled out his wallet and handed over his identification. But something felt deeply wrong. Why was he being treated like a criminal? Was this all happening just because of the color of his skin? Davis's partner stood in the background, watching with an unreadable expression. "You don't look like you belong here," he remarked, his voice dripping with judgment. "You're not from around here, are you?" Was it really that simple? Was Marcus being treated like a criminal just because of his appearance? Was he being questioned simply because he didn't fit in with the neighborhood's idea of what was acceptable? Then it happened. Suddenly, in an instant, Davis grabbed Marcus. "Stop resisting!" he shouted. But Marcus wasn't resisting. He was confused, terrified. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of the chaos. He had done nothing wrong. He was just playing with his son, trying to enjoy a day off. But Davis wasn't listening. He and his partner quickly threw Marcus to the ground, their knees pressing into his back, pinning him to the asphalt. The world around Marcus seemed to fade. He could hear Elijah's terrified voice calling out to him, "Daddy, what are they doing to you?" But Marcus couldn't move. He couldn't answer. His body was trapped, his arms pinned to the ground as the weight of the officers pressed down on him. But then, something strange happened. The people around them began to notice. A few people stopped what they were doing, pulling out their phones to record the scene. Was this it? Would this video, this horrifying footage, be the thing that sparked the outrage? Would it be enough to make people stand up and demand justice? Marcus tried to look up, to see Elijah, but all he could hear were the screams of his son and the officer's shouts. This wasn't just a random encounter, it was something deeper, something far more dangerous. This wasn't just about one man's encounter with the police. This was about race. This was about the assumptions people made about black men, about black fathers. And then came the words that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. "We thought you were kidnapping the child." Kidnapping. Marcus's stomach dropped. He couldn't believe it. He had been playing with his son, but because of his skin color, he was automatically a criminal. He was a threat. How could this be happening? How could a father, simply spending time with his son, be accused of something so horrific? The woman who had been watching the scene stepped forward, asking, "What did he do?" But Davis simply rolled his eyes and muttered, "He was acting suspiciously." "We thought he was a danger." Suspicious? What was suspicious about playing with your own child? What was suspicious about being a black father trying to bond with his son at the park? Marcus's mind raced as the officers dragged him toward the patrol car. "Daddy!" Elijah cried, his small hands reaching through the bars of the fence. "Please, don't let them take you!" The fear in his son's voice broke Marcus's heart. Elijah didn't understand. He was just a little boy. All he knew was that his dad was being taken away, and there was nothing he could do about it. But this wasn't just about Marcus. It was about a system that saw him as a threat, that saw him as guilty just because of how he looked. It was about a world where a black man couldn't even play with his own son without being judged. The video of the incident spread like wildfire. It went viral on social media. People were furious. How could this happen? How could a father and son, simply trying to enjoy a day at the park, be treated like this? The video sparked protests, conversations, and debates about racial profiling, police brutality, and the deep-seated issues that still plagued society. People began to stand up, demanding justice. "This is his dad! He was just playing with his son!" The comments flooded in. It was like a wave of anger and compassion rolled through the country. The story was picked up by news outlets, and eventually, Davis and his partner were put on leave. But for Marcus, the fight wasn't over. The damage had been done. The trauma his son faced couldn't be erased by any court ruling. Elijah's cries, his fear, those things stayed with Marcus, haunting him long after the camera stopped rolling. Would Elijah ever forget that day? Would he ever feel safe again? And so, Marcus's story became more than just his own. It became a symbol of a much larger issue, a deep-seated problem that wasn't just confined to one park, one neighborhood, or one city. This was a problem that stretched across the country, across generations. This was about more than just a father and son. This was about a system that had to change. This brings us to the end of this story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.